Hey guys, it's me, Dr. May. How are all my DBT peeps doing today? You guys doing all right? All right, well, I hope you are. If not, you came to the right place. All right, watching a skill is usually a good thing to do if you're struggling a little bit. Okay, so today we're going to continue with the reducing vulnerability to negative emotions skill. So in another video, I have the ABC part of ABC Please. So today we're going to do the please. Okay, so pull that up for us. Where am I going here? Oh yeah, share screen. Sorry. There we go. All right, so this is part of our emotion regulation module. Okay, so emotion regulation is about making sure our emotions are in a comfortable middle range, not too high, not too low, and that we have some choice over how intense they get and how long they last and what emotions we experience and how we manage them. Okay, so one of the ways we can manage them is by reducing vulnerability to negative emotions. So what does that mean? That means doing things that'll make us less likely to get super upset when a stressor comes our way. Okay, so in this one, please, it really has to do a lot with the mind-body connection. So intervening at the level of biology in order to affect our psychology. Okay, so this involves treating physical illness, balancing eating, avoiding mood-altering drugs, balancing sleep, and getting exercise. Okay, so we're going to break this down and go one by one. Okay, so like I said, your please skills are all about the mind-body connection. Okay, okay, so treating physical illness. So we all get sick from time to time, and sometimes, you know, there's not a whole lot we could do about it. We can't just take a pill and make it go away right away, but we could do what we can to try to get through it and reduce the amount of time we're suffering with it, right? So if you're really feeling run down, you might need to rest, maybe some chicken soup if that's up your alley, or hot tea, or taking it easy, you know, getting under the blankets, taking a break from work if you can. Sometimes, you know, we try to ignore our physical illness and we keep pushing ourselves, but that just makes it worse. Okay, so we got to tune into our body and listen to what it's trying to tell us. Okay, and if we have to see a doctor, we should see one. I know it's a little scary sometimes because we don't always want to hear what they have to say, like we're afraid of bad news. But it's important to get our regular checkups, get our blood work. If clinics are recommended to us, to go to the clinics, and to follow the medical treatment we need so that we could prevent things from coming up even, right? So if we follow what our doctors are telling us, it might, you know, help us avoid bigger problems later, okay? So make sure that all that stuff is in check, especially because a lot of times when people have mental illness, they also struggle with physical illness, and, you know, it kind of compounds everything. So if you at least can take care of some of the physical stuff better, you know, it reduces your stress level and your vulnerability to emotions when they come up, okay? Okay, so next, balanced eating. All right, so there's a whole lot to this skill, as you could probably imagine, because eating is such a hot topic. Okay, think about first on a basic level from a day-to-day kind of a thing, being super hungry or super stuffed and what that does to us. Have you guys ever heard of the acronym HALT from 12 steps? Hungry, angry, lonely, tired. So the hungry and tired are part of please, actually. So if we're really hungry, we're kind of cranky, like hangry. Ever hear that one? Hangry, right? It's get more irritable and more, it's harder to concentrate. It's harder to do what we need to do when we're hungry. So we got to tune into that. And if we're hungry, you know, we need to eat something, right? Don't just keep going and pushing yourself. On the other hand, if we overeat, you know, we're stuffed, we could be kind of tired and sluggish and blah, all right? And that could interfere with how we're coping with stuff, okay? So it's important to kind of tune into our hunger signals, check in with ourselves as we're eating, and stop when we're satisfied but not overly full, okay? And related to that, on the bottom left-hand corner, you'll see if you have an eating disorder or some level of disordered eating that maybe not be a full-blown eating disorder, it's really important to work that through, especially in therapy. Because not only does your personal dis-ease create an eating disorder, but the eating disorder itself creates a whole other level of stress and disease in your life. It makes you much more vulnerable to other things. I mean, rituals around eating, guilt about eating too much or too little, feeling bad about purging, trying to hide it from people, like all that stuff creates a whole other level of stress. So it's really important to work that through. And it's also going to be very hard to develop good self-respect and self-esteem if you're damaging your body through unhealthy eating habits. Okay, so that's all I'm going to say about that one here. Eating disorders are a whole big topic, but just to put it out there, that part of balanced eating for you folks is to really work that through. Okay, all right, so next, do your best to make healthy food choices. I know it's very tempting, especially when we're emotional, to eat a lot of junk food, right? To go to the freezer and eat that tub of ice cream or open that bag of chips or cookies, right? And it feels good in the moment, but then it's going to feel kind of crappy later. I watched a really good long docu-series about eating last year, and it was very eye-opening. They talked about the relationship between certain foods and problems like anxiety and depression and autism, ADHD, and stuff like that. So they said, you know, one of the things to look out for is eating inflammatory foods, because if you're eating inflammatory foods, it's also inflaming your brain. And when your brain is inflamed, that's what also happens when you have all those, you know, psychiatric problems, especially anxiety and depression. There's studies about this. And sometimes they found that when people with those issues change their diet, some of the mood symptoms start to go away. And that's a fact, okay? So you may not even realize what you're doing because you're eating the same junk all the time. But if you actually made those diet changes, maybe working with a nutritionist, you might really see a difference. And that's something that doesn't take medication. You might still need medication, but maybe you won't need as much medication, okay? So what are inflammatory foods? A few examples are wheat, dairy, soy, meat, and sugar. Okay, so all your junk foods have a lot of these ingredients in them, right? So a healthy plant-based diet, eating lots of fruit and vegetables is probably the best thing. But also another thing is that a lot of people have undiagnosed food allergies and sensitivities, and those can also have a major impact on your mood. So they found that, you know, some people stopping eating wheat or gluten or, you know, cutting back on sugar or stopping dairy, like has a huge effect on their mental health, right? So if you could work with somebody to help you on those food issues like that, you would be surprised some of the impact you feel, okay? So just want to keep that in mind. All right, so next, avoid mood altering drugs. So I'm sure the first thing that comes to the mind is drugs and alcohol in the usual sense. So as we know, when you take those things, it affects your mood. It might, you know, lower your mood. It might elevate your mood. It might make you more agitated. It might make you more sluggish. It has different effects on different people. Some people even say that certain marijuanas and things make them paranoid. I've seen a number of people that became schizophrenic after smoking way too much pot. It actually triggered a psychotic reaction. So talk about making you more vulnerable to negative emotions. I mean, that's huge, okay? So you need to know what it does to you and your body and how it mixes with any medications you're taking, such as psychiatric medications. And besides using the drugs, I mean, withdrawing from them has its own effect, and that can make you more vulnerable to stress, okay? Okay, so going to the right, being careful of over-the-counter medication. So just because it's over-the-counter and you could just buy it at CVS or something, it doesn't mean it won't have an impact on the way you feel. Even allergy medications, you know, can make people feel a little agitated, or cough syrups, you know, or sometimes if you're trying to be sober and you take some of those medications, it might recreate a feeling that reminds you of getting high. And that in itself can make you anxious because you may be scared to feel that again, okay? So really be careful of all those things. Notice what it does to your body. And if you have to make a different choice, you know, work with your doctor to make a different kind of a choice. And always communicate to your treating providers if you have a substance abuse history so they could work with you to prescribe the right kinds of medication. Okay, here's another one that may not seem as obvious. It's super important not to overuse antibiotics. Just because you show up to a doctor with a cold, it doesn't mean, for example, that getting antibiotics is the right thing to do, even if they, try to prescribe it to you. They're way overprescribed. And every time you take antibiotics, and there's medical studies on this, it increases your chance of developing anxiety and depression. And they showed a graph where as the use of antibiotics increased in America, also the same rate of anxiety and depression increased, okay? It messes with your gut microbiome, and guess where all your neurotransmitters are made? Mostly there. And neurotransmitters affect your brain and your mood and all that kind of stuff. So only take them when absolutely necessary, okay? They don't treat viruses, right? Sometimes we think we have a virus and we should take an antibiotic, but that's always not really always the greatest thing to do. And if you do take it, you should take a probiotic with it to put back some of the gut bacteria that's lost. Okay, there's lots of information about that out there also. And also, while it seems a little more mild, be careful of what the effects of caffeine and nicotine have on you, okay? I know a lot of people love their coffee, right? And if you're so used to coffee and then you don't have it, withdrawing from coffee could have a big effect. People with anxiety that drink coffee could get a little bit more anxious than usual. And also, do you know that nicotine can actually affect the levels of some of your psychiatric medication? So if you're taking cigarettes, you're smoking cigarettes rather, you might have to take a higher dose of your medication because the nicotine's countering it. So if you quit smoking, you actually get to take a lower dose sometimes of your psych meds, okay? So avoid mood altering drugs. Okay, next, S, balanced sleep, okay? One of the most important things we could do for ourselves is to get a full night of sleep, and quality sleep. They said that for kids, not getting enough sleep or even 1 hour less of sleep can mimic symptoms of ADHD. Could you believe that? And also, besides for the usual effects, we get cranky, it's hard to concentrate, you're more irritable. It's really much better for your biology and the way all your systems are working if you get a good night's sleep, okay? I might add another supplemental video about this because there's just a lot of really fascinating information. Okay, so one of the things you could do for sleep hygiene, there's actually a thing called CBTI for insomnia, but anyway, so sleep hygiene, keep a regular sleep schedule. It helps a lot if you go to bed and wake up approximately the same time every day so that your body's in a certain kind of a rhythm, all right? Get the amount of sleep that helps you feel good, okay? So don't gyp yourself with too little, but also be careful about sleeping a lot during the day. Some people get bored and they sleep, or they're trying to avoid life, or they're depressed and they sleep way too much. And sleeping a lot during the day could almost mimic symptoms of depression, because the more you sleep, the more tired you get, and the more sleepy you feel, and the more depressed you feel, and the more tired you get, and the more you want to sleep. And it's like a vicious cycle. So really be careful about that, all right? Especially if you're in the hospital. I see people in the hospital a lot sleeping way too much. And you also don't want to sleep your life away, right? You have a nice life to live out there. And if possible, try to keep your room cool and dark and quiet if you can. I know it's not always possible, but if those conditions aren't there, it's probably harder to, get some good sleep. All right. Another thing that comes up a lot with people is that it's hard to shut your mind off at night, right? So you want to go to sleep, you're laying down, you're trying to sleep, but your mind just won't keep quiet, okay? So you have some anxiety, you're worrying about stuff that happened during the day, you're thinking about tomorrow, and it's hard to shut it off, okay? So they have a few suggestions for that. One on the left, upper left, the nickname for this is meditation, right? So instead of meditation, it's meditation. So that's kind of when you choose to do some, meditation or mindfulness practice at night, and maybe even combine it with some deep breathing or progressive muscle relaxation, which is taking muscle group by muscle group, tensing them really, really tight, and then letting them go and feeling the warmth and relaxation. So you go one piece at a time from your toes all the way up to your head. Another thing they suggest too is that, when you catch yourself entertaining your thoughts, try to drop below your thoughts and put your attention on your body instead. Maybe put it all the way down by your feet so it's as far away from your head as possible. So try to move to the physical sensations and just a pure observe rather than, entertaining your thoughts like you need to keep solving things and fixing things right now. Okay. Another thing you can remind yourself of is that your thoughts in the middle of the night are not always as logical as you think. It might seem like a super big deal at midnight, but when you wake up in the morning, it might seem kind of different because you're not thinking as clearly in the middle of the night as you might during the day. Okay. Something that feels like, oh my God, I got to fix this right now. Tomorrow morning feels like, yeah, it's whatever, right? So one thing you could do is tell yourself, listen, this is just middle of the night thinking. All right, there goes my brain again, chattering away when I'm trying to sleep. Oh, well, there goes my middle of the night thinking. All right, so notice it, but don't make a big deal about it. Okay, say thank you very much, but I'll talk to you tomorrow. Okay, if you're trying to get yourself tired enough to fall asleep, think different thoughts by reading a book. If you like to read, or watching TV if that doesn't keep you up too much. Sometimes the TV in the background can help you sleep while you're closing your eyes because it's having another kind of dialogue in the background besides your thoughts. Sometimes I feel like when I read a book, all of a sudden I feel like my eyes getting really tired, and then it's easier for me to segue into sleep. So you could try these things out if you want to. Another thing you could try is listening to music. So just put your headphones in if you want, or put on some soft music. Insight Timer is great. They have some really nice, soft, meditative music. And some of the tracks are really long, so you can listen to them while you're trying to fall asleep, and they'll just keep going. Okay. YouTube has some stuff like that too. They have like maybe 8-hour, music things that can just like go on all night long if you really need that. But sometimes it takes you out of your thoughts, and it could help soothe the anxiety. Okay. All right. All right, so next, another big issue that comes up, especially, if you're under a lot of stress or you have a history of trauma, is nightmares, okay? It can make you terrified of wanting to go to sleep because you're so afraid of having that bad nightmare over and over again, okay? Here are some suggestions you could try. Not that it's necessarily gonna always work, but it's worth a shot if you're struggling, okay? When you wake up, try to write down the nightmare in your journal in detail. Putting it on paper takes it out of your head, and it makes it a little bit more concrete. And when you read it back to yourself, you're using a different part of your brain to process it than you were while you were in the middle of it in your dream. Okay, so that shifts it already a little bit. And if you write them down every night, you might see some common themes. And seeing them like that might give you more perspective on what they're about or what they're symbolizing for you. You could also then take them and bring them to therapy with you if you're in therapy, share it with your therapist, and try to figure out what this is all about. If you're not really comfortable with writing, that's okay. You could also remember it and share it, or you could even draw a picture of something that you remember from it. And seeing it on paper as a visual might help you figure it out or understand it, or see it with a little more perspective too. Here's another interesting tip that you may not have thought of. I know it wasn't that obvious to me at first, but take the story of the nightmare and write it again with a different ending. So maybe instead of, getting caught and being, trapped by the bad guy, maybe something else is going to happen and it won't turn out so bad. Or maybe instead of being alone and scared in your nightmare, you have some protector with you. And you can imagine who that might be and what the protection might involve. Or if there's another person in the nightmare that's giving you a hard time, for example, maybe imagine that person with somebody that's making that person happier or more resourced, or helping that person cope so that they end up being a nicer person, and maybe they don't treat you so badly. Like maybe there's different kinds of ways to handle a nightmare, so it turns out differently. And they also suggest this as a way of working through a trauma from the past. Same kind of way, like imagine it differently, rehearse it in your mind, really visualize it. And they say it actually reshapes the memory, and it feels different when it's a little bit different in your mind. Okay, so you might as well give it a try, right? See if it helps. Okay, so now we're back to the Ian please. We made it to the end. So exercise, okay? one of the main things they actually prescribe to help people with depression is exercise. You know, so depression is a very immobile type of state. So exercise gets you moving. You need to mobilize yourself in order to lift yourself out of that sluggish, depressive state, okay? It also definitely helps relieve the tension you have if you're anxious, and it shifts your whole mood, and it can distract you while you're doing it, okay? So there's a lot of payoffs. It's one of the healthiest things you can do for your brain also. You know what else is one of the healthiest things you could do? Mindfulness, okay? So if you do mindfulness and exercise, or mindfully exercise, wow, sign me up, right? Okay, so people have even told me that for them, exercise is part of their medicine. It makes that big of a difference that after an hour or something of working out, they feel like the day is completely different, all right? So we often procrastinate with exercise, we put it off, we make excuses, but try to just get yourself to do it. Have a routine, do it with somebody if you have to, but get moving in whatever way you gotta do, okay? So that's the story. that's please. Okay, so please give it a try. All right, try to take care of your physical so that it helps your emotional, and I hope it puts you in a better place so that you can handle the stressors that come your way. All right, thanks guys. Take care, and I'll see you next time. All right, bye for now.